Welcome everyone to day one, question three. All right, you guys are doing so well so far. So, in this question three, we're going to be focusing on multiple filter conditions within the where class, okay? And then there are some few things we're going to go over as well. Okay, let's start with the use case here, okay? The supply chain team plans production runs for spring catalogs. They need to locate in-house manufactured items that are categorized and marked as finished goods but still lack color attributes. This field drive bill of materials, accuracy, and catalog presentations. Now they have the business impact and then the action to deliver a prioritized data cleanup inventory with impacted SKUs, stock keeping unit. When we're talking about SKU here, we're really referring to the product, okay? And then again, remember the formula we have been using in the other questions: table, attribute, and futures. Now, the first thing to look for here is what table are we referencing here? We are looking at manufactured items, and if you go back to the data domain, you will see that the product, which is going to be the manufactured item, okay, is under the production domain. That means it's going to be under our production schema. And guys, if you relate it to your own work as well, feel free to ask, your team, the business, do we have a data model, do you have a data dictionary, and you should be able to get this information for your own work as well. All right, now that I've identified the table, the attribute has already been specified here, but in the first video I went about to talk about how you would think about the attribute that might be of interest to stakeholders, but in this case we won't go over that. And then the last one is the filters. Yeah, this is really the focus in this video, to look at when you have multiple filters, how do you think about it, how do you make sure you interpret it correctly. Now you can see here it talks about that we are looking for items that are categorized, let's take note of that, marked as finished goods. Okay, in this particular case we are going to be using make flag. I know there is another one called finished goods flag, but don't worry too much about the context here, but let's just use make flag. All right, and also here it says that still lack color attribute. You can see we have color here and this blank, right? It there is no value for it. Okay, and then so we want to make sure that that is also true when we generate our own data. Okay, so we can see we've seen three different conditions that we need to specify and the table. Let's go to our system where we can then be able to query this data and come up with the solution. All right, so now the first thing you want to do is to do select. All right, and then put the wildcard, so at least you're able to see the data. So you have select from to specify the table. Here you can see its products, and then you just drag and drop, and then you can then run this. You're able to access all the data, right? And then the next question then is that what are the various conditions and how do we correctly interpret it? Now in the real world, some of those filters you want to double check with the business itself, right? You want to double check, oh, the color is very clear, but when it comes to make flag, especially when you have make flag and finish good flag or whatever it is similar to your own use case in your own company or in your own work, you can double check with the business and say, look, is this make flag or finish good flag? In this case, I'm going with make flag because that's what it's expected, but in your case in the real world, just try to double check that. Now let's quickly go over that. Now the first thing is that our focus is really the color, right? So let's say we have the where clause, and then we're gonna pull in the color, and where is the color? You can see the color right there. You can type it as well, but I just want to pull it, and it says it's null, so color is null, and then you run that. You can see here we have black, we have silver. So if this query work as expected, everything should be null. So let's run that, And when we run that, you can see everything is null. That's great. That's our first filter. And the second one, it talks about categorize. The item has to be categorized. Now, how do we know, which one is what to really use to be able to specify whether it's categorized or not? Now, where you want to come here is if you take a look at this, you can see we have the product subcategory ID and the product model ID. What we're really saying is that we want product subcategory ID to always be valid, right? We don't want null, you know. So if you look at it, you can see some of them have some values and some of them have null. So with that, we don't have category ID, so we're just going to use product subcategory here, and we're going to say is not null, right? Meaning that we want the ones that actually has value. So we run that, and once you run it, you see that your value, your count has reduced to 50, and here you can basically see that if you run through this, you can see we don't see any null in the product subcategory ID. That means that all the product we have here are categorized. Okay, and the last one is the one that says that they marked as finished goods. So we're going to use the make flag for that, and then we're going to say and make flag. Let's quickly look for that here. Make flag here, a make flag is equals to true. Okay, and then that's pretty much it. Okay, and then with this, some of the things we can do is that we can then put all of our columns that is required. Okay, if you look at what has been shown there, you can basically be able to see all the various list of columns, right? So we're going to just pull that again here, guys. Let's quickly do that together. All right, and then you pull the name, and then you pull the product number, okay, and also you pull the finished good flags, okay, and also you pull the color. Okay, let's pull the color again. Okay, let's just do color. We can actually type, and then we also do the safety stock level, okay, and also we do the reorder point, and then we also pull the standard cost, okay, and then we also then pull the list price. Okay, let's pull that again, okay, and let's run that, and that's exactly the solution we are looking for. Now, there are key things before we wrap up that I want to go over. In this video, you have been introduced to is null. Now, there are two things you need to be careful. When you think of null, there's also what we call the blank. So there's a difference between null and blank. Now, what do we mean by blank? And let me quickly show you. Okay, so let's say equals to represent blank, we'll say blank, and blank in this case simply means that the column or the column has a value, but what happened is that the value is actually an empty text, right? Whereas for null represent that there is absence of any value. It means that no data at all exists. Okay, so there are two, they are nuanced, but that's it. Yeah, so basically you want to distinguish between null and blank, and then when you run this, you see there is nothing that looks like blank, right? If I say it's not equals, you see, if I said we went over this before, it's not equals to blank, then it's gonna give us some more data, right? So that's just to know that there's a difference between blank and null. And then when we get to the intermediate level, we're going to be using null a lot, but when you're working with your data, always make that distinction. Very key, very key. Okay, so now let's go back to the null that it's null. That's great. And the other nuance I want to show you before I wrap up this video is true. When you say boolean, there are a few things we can do with boolean. Now you can say true, Here we are specifying if it's true, right? And you can run it like that. Now, in the system, Boolean is actually 1 and 0. 0 means false, 1 means true. Okay, let's try that. So you can basically also reference this as 1, and then you will still run it. It will still run quite fine. You can see it's referencing it as true, and then you can put this as 0. All right, it's just some tricks, but they are good to know. And oh, we didn't drop in the make flag. Okay, that's why we are not seeing it. Okay, just give me a second. Let's drop the make flag and let's run that. Okay, so you can see this is coming. We put in 0 here. Let's run that again. We put in 0 here and it's coming as false. Okay, if we put in 1 here again, it will come as true. All right, you can see that it worked quite well. And if we do true and false itself, it will work quite well. Okay, and also you can see it's not capital sensitive. Okay, those are few nuances that you have to take note as you confidently want to write a good query or design your product. All right, I believe this has been really helpful to you. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.